Hey guys, so welcome to the season 5 episode 3 of AEIOU. So as you saw from the last part of our intro, we had 4 blobs and here I am showing it right now to you. Now our lesson for today is the flying blob effect. Now in order to do that, you must go to composition and create a new composition. Make sure that the width and height is 1280 by 720. And the background color is set to black. Now, rename the composition Flying Blob Effect. Once you have that, it's time to start creating the path of the object, or rather, the screen. Now, it's actually up to you on how you'd want the path to look like. Now, make sure when creating the path, it doesn't have a fill. Do that. Click the fill option and remove the fill, and make sure to set the stroke to white and its thickness is 2. Now I'm holding the space bar here to set where I'd want to put the path. Again, it's up to you and how you want it to look like. You might want it to look to have a lot of curves, or just a roller coaster type of path. It's up to you. Once you have that, it's time to create the circle-shaped object, or the blob rather. Now you go to layer, go to new, and create a new shape layer. Now again, using the pen tool, zoom in by pressing Ctrl+, and then make sure that the circle has anchors. I'll discuss this in the latter part of the video, why it needs to have anchors. Now, remove the stroke and then make sure it has a fill. Now, I'm using red here because, well, red is my favorite color, and yeah, so anyway, moving on. So the next thing you want to do is to go to Contents, and then make sure you check the path and its anchors. Now, position rather. Go to shape, then check out the path of the line you created. Now it has 4 anchor points. Now what you want to do is copy that by pressing Ctrl+C or Command+C, and then set the color of the path to yellow. You'd want to copy and paste the path to the position of the blob so that the blob will follow the path. Now you see here there are keyframes that indicate that the blob is moving along the path. Now you'd want to widen that by pressing that button, and then check out the keyframes. It's actually up to you on how you'd want the momentum or the flow of the blob along the path. So sometimes you want it easy ease by right clicking it and then pressing easy ease, or you want also the other parts of the keyframes. Now you can adjust it so that it will be slower or faster, it depends to you. Now I don't want my keyframes at the start and the end to have an easy ease. So you do that by pressing the keyframe and then pressing F9. In order to modify the momentum or the speed of the blob, you go to the graph editor, and then you see here is a graphical representation of the path. Now each anchor represents a keyframe or the location of the blob along the path. So sometimes you'd want it to have a slope or a steep look. You can also adjust when it will go fast or slow, it depends to you. Now I don't want mine to have a sudden drop in speed, so I don't want that. anchor frame to have a slope. Now, once you have that set, it's time to fix the orientation of the blob. Here, checking if it's right, and yes, we're done with that. Now, as you see here, the blob doesn't follow, or rather the orientation of the blob doesn't follow the path. So what you want to do is for it to look like it is really following the path. Now you go to layer, go to transform, and press auto orient and orient along path. Now you see now that it is following the path. The next step now is to fix the scale of the blob. Now, you do want the blob to have a larger size at the start of the path and smaller size at the end. So you want to create a keyframe first at the end, and then you zoom it backwards and then create another keyframe. Now you want it to have a large, again, you want it to have a large start, and then as it ends, it gets smaller. Make sure you adjust the keyframes of the position so that it will move and become smaller parallel. Now the next thing to do is to add a wiggle path. Now the wiggle path shows the blobby effect. Now you'd want the wiggles per second at 23, the size at 16, and the details at around maybe 2 or 1. You'd want the points of the blob at smooth. Now you can actually adjust this to your liking. Maybe you want it to be more chaotic or to be more smoother. It actually depends to you. Now with that done, you go to size, and by pressing alt click, you link it to the position. Now right now, you see here, transform the position 0. You don't want it like that, so the next one is by erasing 0 and then replacing it with speed. Now it's not yet the blobby look that we want, so you'd want to go to the position and go to the graph editor and then look at the pixels per second of the highest and lowest frames. Now you'd want that to be divided by 300, and so go back to the wiggle path and then speed, press slash, divided by 300. Now you see that it's more controlled, or it's more tame, I guess, in the blobby effect. Now you don't want to adjust it to make it shorter or faster. There we go. Now that's the exact thing I want. Then now it's time to adjust the look of the blob, the physical look of the blob. Now you're going to do that by adjusting the anchor points of the blob to make it look like it is actually flying. You'd want to set a keyframe at the path at the start and the end by pressing the keyframe icon there. Oops. Now you zoom in, press H, Rather, check out the position first, if it's okay. And there we go, we drag it there by pressing H, then dragging. Now again, the next step is to modify the look of the blob. Make it look like it is actually flying. Now you do that by pressing V or the arrow at the upper left. Now you want it to make it look like it's blobbier, and you want it to have a head. So, and you also want it to have a tail. So the basic rule for this one is you have to orient the blob along the line. You don't want it to deviate or to get messed up along the way. So you have it in line with the path. So it's gonna take a while actually, but it has to be done. Now at the greater speeds or the sloping down, going down motions, you do want the tail to be longer because it is going fast. And at the greatest curves or any part of the curve, you want it to have a shorter tail and a curvier look rather. Now I'm fast forwarding this so that we can go to the end of the path, and we'll have a look at the output. Again, just make sure that the look of the blob is still consistent along the way. You don't want it to be suddenly going smaller or larger. You have to be consistent in terms of resizing the blob. That's a part wherein you have to follow the orientation of the path. Sometimes it deviates because of the speed change. So adjust it accordingly. We're almost there. Almost there. There we go. Now we'd reach the end of the path. Well, almost at the end of the path. And there we go. Let's play it. And I think it looks alright. Looks okay. Now the next thing is to make it look like the end part of the intro. Now in order to do that, you'd have to pre-compose both layers. Pre-composing means you combine them in order to become one whole video. Do that by pressing layer and then pre-compose. You want to rename it as the flying blob, and then as you saw in the video earlier, you'd have to duplicate it 4 times to have 4 different blobs. Now you want to hide the path now, and then you have duplicate it another time so that it will have 4. As you can see right now, you only have 1. Now in order to do that, you can adjust the scale to mirror it to come from the other side by scaling it down to -100. What it does is it puts it at the left side, or it mirrors whatever is on the right side. And yes, we're going here, duplicating on it another time, and then you transform the scale of the other one to 100. Other one is fine. Oops, it's -100. And then keep it that way, 100. Now as you can see, you only have 2. So what you do is drag it so that it will have a line. Make sure it has 4. and then actually from here it's actually okay. But then at the intro, we have different blobs starting at different times. So you do that by adjusting the line of each video so that each blob will start at a different time, at a later time. Now the next thing is to go to composition settings, and then change the background color to white. Play it, and there you go. So there we have it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like our video page, and for our next episode, we're going to incorporate a blob into the text. Thank you guys for tuning in, and peace out.